computer is picking up a strange signal. Here, sir, you better take a look at it.
Hi, and welcome to Sci-Fi Snacks. I'm Liz J. Bradley, a science fiction author and poet who adores short fiction and snacks. Each episode of Sci-Fi Snacks is a short and sweet, or salty, discussion of what I loved, what I learned, and what I snacked on while reading new-to-me short science fiction. As always, links to the short stories are in the show notes, so if you haven't read this week's story, head on over, pick up your favorite snack, and then join me as we discuss this week's story. Hello, friends! I hope you are having a wonderful holiday season. I hope it's a little restful for you. I've worked retail in the past, so I know this is not the calm, quiet season for everyone out there. So I hope you can find some moments of calm and clarity and rest in the final week of the year. I'm so excited to have this special bonus episode this week on Christmas. This was not a part of the plan originally, but I had to share with all of you. There is this amazing new passion project that someone has started called Ink Foundry. Now, we are not sponsored. We are not being paid. This is not an ad. I'm just obsessed with this tool that would have made starting this podcast so much easier. But now that I have it, I have been diving in and I just had to share it with you. Essentially, you go to inkfoundry.net is a search engine for short fiction. Now, there is so much good short fiction out there. Fantasy, sci-fi, horror, contemporary. Ink Foundry does not draw any borders on that, but it's so hard to find sometimes unless you know what you're looking for or you have a certain magazine that you like to read. You are bound to be missing something, and that's where Ink Foundry comes in. They are a search engine for these amazing short fiction pieces, and there are some guidelines to be listed on Ink Foundry, but which you can see on their website, but pretty much it's just the authors have been paid for their work and it's out there to read for free online. So I did some searching, and in that I found some really fun Christmas science fiction and fantasy stories, and I have been reading up a storm, and it's been really fun. And I had to share some of those with you. And if there's another thing that I love about the Christmas season is that for me and for my family, it means a lot of snacks. Cookie exchanges and time spent with family in the kitchen and all of those kinds of things just mean lots and lots and lots of food and lots of snacks. Because this was the holiday season, I also decided that in addition to reading a whole bunch of Christmas-themed science fiction and fantasy stories, I was going to try and eat every single Little Debbie Christmas snack out there. And I don't think I missed any, but if I did, let me know, because the season is not over yet and I am on a mission to try them all. So the Little Debbie Christmas snacks that I did have, there were 4 of them. They had, first up were gingerbread soft cookies. These were okay. They're shaped like little gingerbread men. They have some icing on them. I am more of a ginger snap fan. I like the crunchiness of that kind of cookie. So these ones were okay. We also had buttery vanilla mini muffins. These were good. They didn't taste particularly Christmassy. They were vanilla, which is great, but there are never enough mini muffins in a bag, if I do say so myself. So mini muffins were great, but they are near the bottom of this list. Next up were Christmas tree cakes. Now, these are my husband's favorite, and I think I'm team they are good, but they also taste like wax. Like the outside has got a weird residue after you eat them, but it's kind of good still. It's kind of like Twizzlers, where it feels like you're eating plastic and it's like forbidden food, but they're still good. So Christmas tree cakes were not my number one, and I know people will fight me on that, but I stand by it that they are good, but in like a weird way. My favorite was something that I had never had before, but was in this display of Little Debbie seasonal cakes, and they were the snowflake brownies. Now, I know I'm not alone in the fact that brownies from scratch can be really, really hard to make. And I think that actually boxed brownies, like a boxed brownie mix, makes amazing brownies so much easier than making them from scratch. And I thought that these snowflake brownies, which were a really dense fudgy chocolatey brownie with a layer of frosting that they then kind of stamped a snowflake into, I thought they were really good and they were well balanced. And I know I'm talking about a Little Debbie snack like it's some sort of gourmet thing, which it is not, but they took the top spot for me. So snowflake brownies, crowning those as number one. So this week's bonus story, I read a few, and you can find a bunch on Ink Foundry, but the one that I wanted to share with you was on Escape Pod. This is another podcast. If you love listening to stories, go check out Escape Pod, episode 711, Carols on Callisto. This was written by Deborah L. Davitt. This story comes in at about 6,142 words, so we are solidly in that short story category. Deborah L. Davitt was raised in Nevada, but currently lives in Houston, Texas, with her husband and son. Her poetry has received Riesling, Dwarf Star, and Pushcart nominations. Her short fiction has appeared in Intergalactic Medicine Show, Compelling Science Fiction, and Pseudopod. For more about her work, including her Edda Earth novels and her poetry collection, The Gates of Never, please see www.edda-earth.com. And as always, those links will be in the show notes. Now, Davitt's story, Carols on Callisto, I decided to listen to the podcast version of this. I made the decision. Escape Pod is really great because they have both the text and the podcast. And I love to listen to things while I'm driving or doing my dishes or something like that. So I decided that with the title Carols on Callisto, I was like, this sounds like something that I should be listening to, right? And I was not wrong. It was really great. So the general gist of the story is that essentially we are on Jupiter's moon, Callisto, right? And it is the holiday season of Earth. So obviously like Callisto is not Earth, but it's synced up Earth time. It's the holidays. And there are a lot of people there who are like, Earth's holidays are pointless. We don't need to be celebrating them. And our main character, Rebecca Fox, she believes differently at this point. Maybe a little reluctantly at first, but as we get into the story, she decides to really kind of lean into the holiday season and traditions of Earth humans to kind of bring the community together, because what we encounter in this story is that Jupiter's electrical belts have this really big like radiation surge, and it knocks out a ton of the power, and except for like backup systems, and even then some of that is like not doing great, and communications are knocked out. We are plunged into darkness, and it's really, really dangerous outside because there's a ton of radiation, and they're not able to safely go and fix the problem. And they're waiting for a resupply, and there's just all of these compounding things, and everyone is kind of huddled in together because they're trying to stay warm, they're trying to stay safe, and the main character is trying to bring everyone together, and in a way that doesn't feel forced. There's this really great moment where she goes to kind of the adults on Callisto and says, hey, so the kids are putting together this kind of Christmas holiday pageant thing, and they're going to be singing some songs and doing some little things, and you'd really be helping them out if you went and just kind of like clapped for them and were a good audience and things like that, because she realizes that people need to feel like they have a purpose and not feel like they're being forced into things. And so in this time where nobody has control over anything, she is really smart about how to bring the community together. And what I really loved about this piece was the author did such a great job showing platonic friendships. I am a huge fan of romance subplots, all of those kinds of things. But I know that that's kind of a sticking point for a lot of people in science fiction. They're like, I don't want any romance in my science fiction. And while I do not relate, I understand that it's not for everyone. And this was a really great story that showcased these platonic friendships, especially between men and women. You know, our main character and one of the guys on Callisto were really, really good friends. And they were that kind of found family. And there was never any sort of inkling of it being something more or something romantic. So while I love that kind of plot, it was done really well in this story. What this story also did really well was examine not just friendships, but family, especially around the holidays. So our main character has been, I don't know if estranged is too strong of a word, but she hasn't spoken to her son in a really long time, who we find is back on Earth. And they've been really disconnected. And now, because of all the radiation, they can't communicate even if she wanted to. And there's this really beautiful arc in this story where her found family kind of nudges her in the right direction to reconnect with her biological family. And I think that a lot of people, the holidays can be really tough because family relationships can be tough. And even if you had a great relationship at one point, you may not anymore. And the holidays are a big reminder of that. It's everybody's getting together and they're traveling to go see each other. And it can be hard if you feel like you don't have that. And this family dealt with that in a really, I think, nuanced way. It wasn't like, you know, they just had kind of drifted apart, and we're dealing with, you know, the science fiction-y bits of communication delays. She couldn't just pick up a phone and send a text to her son. She couldn't just call him out of the blue. You know, there's a time delay between messages. So when they finally get in contact with each other at the end, it's more like they have to monologue at each other. So she gets a message from her son and, you know, he acknowledges that he wants to connect and that it's going to take time to get to her. And so here are a bunch of my questions and here's stuff that's happening and all of that. And it just thinking about how, as we look at expanding across even just the solar system, not even like big, crazy science fiction dreams of like, ooh, galaxy hopping and blah, blah, blah. Like the more realistic, someday we might go populate a moon or have a space station, and there's time delays. And how does that change our relationship with people back on Earth and family that might be back on Earth? It's really, really interesting, and I really liked that was explored. I also thought that the world building, this kind of ties into that, felt really real and grounded. And if you've been listening to the podcast for any amount of time, you know that I am not someone who goes and fact checks anything in terms of the science. I lean into the fiction of my science fiction. So if you tell me that that's how something works, I am going to believe you. But this world building, I think maybe because it doesn't feel so fantastic, it feels more realistic, like someday we will be on Callisto. It felt really real. And I loved the evolution of holidays and traditions. And I think if we look back to look forward, we can see how holidays have evolved since only a few hundred years ago. There are some things that we keep and we build on, and then there are other things that we kind of let go. And I feel like it says a lot about us as humans that inherently we are all, you know, drawn to meaning making and traditions, and that those things will never die. They will look different. I think the thing I loved the most about this story, and is totally a reason to listen to the podcast version, is the song in it. One of the scientist teachers has the idea to change the song Let It Snow to Let It Glow. And they talk about the radiation outside. It's, the radiation outside it's too bad. We have to stay inside, but we've got no place to go, so let it glow. And I was like, it was so clever and so cute and so like something that humans would do. We're always making parodies and we're always building on things. And you can just see it becoming a new tradition. That's the song that those kids are going to listen to. They've sung it and it becomes a part of the mythos of holiday and tradition for them. And that really transitions into what I learned reading this, is just that leaning into holidays and traditions and all of these things that are so tied to our humanity, what makes people set apart from animals and things like that is our traditions, our holidays. All of those kinds of things. There's so much story in there. And it really makes your writing, and at least this story, I think, feel really grounded. And even though it's science fiction and we're out on the moon, it still feels very relatable because we all celebrate holidays of some sort. And so this was a really cool way to have that connection. And it made me think of, on a scene level, there's this advice of, you want to avoid talking heads. So people just talking back and forth to each other in a room where nothing's happening. So if you have like a conflict or something, have something else going on that magnifies that situation. So, okay, two people are fighting with each other, but they don't want to yell at each other. So maybe they are, at the same time, they're decorating their Christmas tree, and they're pulling out ornaments and seeing all these memories, and maybe the lights on the tree don't work, or there's frustration. So there's like a physical aspect that's mirroring the situation. And I feel like having a holiday be the backdrop of your story kind of does that on a bigger level. The holidays magnify all of these situations and things about family that this story is really about, but it grounds it in a way that gives it structure. So I thought that was really cool. And on that note, I just wanted to encourage you to find a snack that becomes part of your traditions for this dark holiday season. Thankfully, we've just turned the corner on solstice, so the days are going to get longer from here on out, which is amazing. And a reminder that you should find ways to bring light into your own life. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of 2025, and I cannot wait to be back on all platforms, full steam ahead for season 3, starting in January. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Bye.